Hello, Serendipitous here with my TTRPG shelf. Talking about some Fantasy Flight Games stuff here today. This time, yeah, Star Wars: Edge of the Empire, the role-playing game. This is a little bit on the this is on the slightly older side. I believe this game was published before the sequel trilogy. So there's that. Although there are actually multiple Star Wars. There are actually multiple core rule books in this Fantasy Flight Star Wars role playing game. There are three core books that I am aware of. There's Edge of the Empire, and then there's Force and Destiny, which is focused on Force and Destiny is focused on being like Jedi or like Force or like people with like the Force is very strong and the Jedi are out and about and everything like that. And then the other one is called Age of Rebellion, which is about fighting again in the rebellion against the Empire. Edge of the Empire in particular is about the fringes of the Empire. This is about like all the um, uh, even though this even though this was made well before The Mandalorian ever existed, the show The Mandalorian would fit very well into this. This is like the scum and villainy like Tatooine and the huts and bounty hunters and that kind of thing. That's the kind of that's why it's called Edge of the Empire. It's about the fringes of the Empire where you have bounty hunters and scoundrels like Han Solo and Chewbacca around. And so this is the only one that I have. Force and Destiny. The Jedi one does sound cool to me, but I'm very happy with this because honestly, as cool as the Force and the Jedi are and everything like that, I've come to appreciate Star Wars for this kind of stuff, this Edge of the Empire stuff, and all the bounty hunters trying to get by and things like that. I think that's and the Mandalorian certainly showed that as well. So yeah, I have a couple of things here. I have the core rulebook. I have a game master screen. You can see there's a bit of wear and tear. This has seen some use. Like all game master screens, there is helpful information here. And this is debts to pay, which is basically a starting adventure. And I printed out some pages to help with like some maps and stuff. This is basically an introductory adventure to get you started, to get people started. But yeah, you may notice this book has seen a bit of use as well. I ran a whole campaign with this game for work one time for my coworkers, like in a previous job. Not my current job, but in a previous job a number of years ago. Oh yeah, so one thing that Fantasy Flight Games seems to like to do is have custom dice. This is the dice that you use. Actually, this is two sets of dice. Really, technically, like one set of dice is about half of this. But you can see that like all these dice are like normal. They're the normal shapes for Dungeons and Dragons or like normal polyhedral dice, right? You got your six-sided dice, you got your eight-sided, 12-sided, but they all have these different symbols on them, right? I'm not going to explain everything about these symbols, but suffice it because I mean you can definitely look that up if you're really interested. But suffice it to say that the way that Fantasy Flight Games kind of like operates with most of their role-playing games, including the Star Wars one, is there are good dice and there are bad dice. These white ones are different. I'll explain that in a moment. But basically, so yeah, here we go. So with how you when your character is more skilled in something, then you get to use like better and better dice. So the blue, green, and yellow dice are good. Like they help you as a player to like get good results, right? There's some success symbols, some advantage symbols in here. The purple, black, and red dice are the bad dice. They have some failure and disadvantage and threat symbols. Basically, when you roll these symbols, you basically like positive and negative, they cancel each other out, and then you kind of figure out whatever's left is your result essentially. So if you have two success symbols and one one failure symbol or something, then you have one success symbol left over essentially. The more sides that a dice has, the better or worse it is essentially. And so obviously, like the 6-sided dice are weaker than 8-sided, which are weaker than 12-sided. So yeah, basically you've kind of make up your dice pool, and the game master gives you some negative dice, and you roll them all together, and you cancel out positive and negative things, um, which is kind of cool. And then these are force dice. Technically, you only need one of them, but I have two because I bought two sets of these dice, right? There is a force mechanic in here. So the white dots mean the light side of the force, and the dark dots mean the dark side of the force. So you basically roll the dice to kind of see what you know there's a point system for the force, like a sort of a balancing act. The players can use the light side, while the game master can use the dark side to make things more challenging. And the players, of course, use the light side to give themselves advantages and things like that, right? I think it's I do like the idea. Sometimes it's hard to. Sometimes it tries to make things a bit more narrative than just dealing with numbers. Although by my experience, sometimes I have struggled to like give a reason for the very like make a narrative out of the various symbols that are rolled, and I'm just kind of like, okay, you have one success with a disadvantage, you get -1 to your damage or something like that. They do have aids like charts to help you with that, but yeah, it talks about like building your dice pool and stuff like that. Yeah, creating your character background, your character's obligation, because out in the edge of the empire, everyone has a debt to pay. There are different species, a lot of sort of standard ones. You got droids, you got Rhodians, you got Wookiees, and so on and so forth. A lot of ones that you would recognize if you saw them. Specializations and so on and so forth. And then here we have like the different classes with their the different classes and everything. And there's a skill tree for each class, or I think specialization, whatever it's called. Basically, you start. I believe you start. Yeah, like you start like at the top, and you spend experience points to purchase abilities on these trees, and you choose one of these. Like you want to be a bounty hunter assassin, a bounty hunter gadgeteer, bounty hunter survivalist. There's 3 tech trees for each like kind of class. Then you have the colonist, so doctor, politico, or scholar. In the explorer category, you have a fringer, a scout, and a trader. For a hired gun, you've got bodyguard, marauder, and mercenary. And for smuggler, you've got pilot, scoundrel, and thief. For the technician, you've got the mechanic, the outlaw tech, and the slicer. But yeah, investing experience points and so forth. Yeah, different like skills. What each of the skills mean. Really, really awesome art as well, of course. Talents, right? So yeah, skills and talents. Items, weapons, armor, all the kinds of things you would expect in a big book like this, right? Weapon attachments, vehicles, how combat works. Honestly, if I were to if and when I were to run a campaign with Star Wars: Edge of the Empire again, yeah, spaceship, rules and combat and traveling and whatever. If I were to run this again, I'd have to review a lot of the rules, because it's been a number of years since I've run this game, but I love it. Oh yeah, so it is possible, even though the Force is not something that's focused on in this particular like version of the game, in this particular book, it is possible to have a force sensitive character, and there are some like force abilities. There's some like power trees for different like force abilities, but it's on the weaker side, right? There's nothing truly like. If your character is force sensitive in the Edge of the Empire, this is kind of a time where there aren't really any Jedi. Essentially, there's almost no Jedi. There's like the Jedi are pretty much like wiped out or in hiding at this point, right? And so, if you really want to go deep into Force abilities, that's where the Force in Destiny book comes into play. But you can have a bit of that, and I think that's cool. Stuff about running the game. Yeah, stuff about the galaxy. They have this really cool map of the galaxy here. They even have like labeled trade routes. That's what these colored lines are. And so kind of like in the middle, like Coruscant is right here, towards the middle of the galaxy. But then like out here, you got like Hut space, Tatooine, and stuff is like, in the outside. It does say like core colonies, inner rim, expansion region, mid rim, outer rim, and unknown, wild space, and that kind of thing. Really cool stuff. And then they have information about the various regions of the galaxy. Um, what you can expect, the kind of dangers you can come across, various factions like the like Black Sun, the Hutts, and so forth. Law and order in the galaxy. Adversary list. This is kind of like NPCs you can kind of like put in the stormtroopers, obviously. Basically, this book is intended for Star Wars adventures as if they took place during the original trilogy, but kind of like out in Tatooine and like again, not in the middle. Basically, all the people people who are like just trying to survive under the thumb of the Empire, but not in the rebellion. Essentially, like the rebellion is sort of like the rebellion and the Empire are just kind of like part of the world, and you're just trying to live in it with all these various like crime syndicates and things like that, right? That's what this game is all about, and I think that's really cool. There's a lot of fun to be had with that. So, yeah, there you go. Um, but yeah, I love original Star Wars. Definitely I grew up on the prequel trilogy. I was younger when episodes 1 and 2 came out, and yeah, my wife and I are huge fans of the Mandalorian, the show The Mandalorian. We love Grogu, the little baby Yoda character, and everything. And we actually have a Mandalorian poster in our house as well, where the Mandalorian himself is like carrying Grogu. Um, I haven't watched a lot of other like more recent Star Wars stuff. I will admit, I kind of call me old fashioned. I kind of I like the good old Star Wars. I will say though. There is one thing that my wife Cobweb she introduced me to a Star Wars villain by the name of Thrawn, and he's in Star Wars Rebels, which the two of us watched together. And like Thrawn is up there next to Darth Vader as like one of my favorite Star Wars villains. Really, really cool. Um, but yeah, anyone who's interested in playing this game, of course, you do have to purchase not just a book but also dice. So it's a little more pricey, and it might be a little confusing to kind of understand how this game works and how the dice works and everything. But I was able to learn it, and I was able to run it and have a good time with my coworkers. So anyway, there you go. That is Star Wars Edge of the Empire, the role playing game. I will mention too, this is not the only Star Wars role playing game in existence. I think this is like the one that's like currently like in print basically, and there are lots of other supplemental books. I don't have any of those. This is the only Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars role playing game book that I have, apart from like these other things here. And I know that there are other Star Wars role playing games that were made like in years past and whatever, which you can probably find somewhere on the internet because they're out of print. So even so, I think someone even translated Star Wars into like Dungeons and Dragons Fifth Edition. But honestly, I like the flavor of this one. I enjoy playing this one a lot. And if you can get past the dice mechanics and how the game works, I think there's a lot of fun to be had with this. So anyway, hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, all the best.